The reason I am writing this article is that their greatness fills me with deep admiration. When standing at the crossroads between autocracy and democracy, they resolutely chose democracy. They had the ability to become kings and to turn power into a hereditary right, yet they did not do so. It was this selflessness that laid a solid foundation for American democracy and made it increasingly strong. Now, let us review their deeds with a heart full of reverence. The first great man made irreplaceable contributions to the stability and continuity of the American constitutional system. His greatness did not stem from any single earth-shattering achievement, but rather from a series of critical decisions and actions. During the Revolutionary War, as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, he faced severe challenges such as resource shortages, undertrained soldiers, and internal strife. Despite these extreme disadvantages, he maintained the Army's combat effectiveness through steadfast will and strategic patience, ultimately leading the United States to victory and independence. His military leadership not only secured national independence, but also laid the foundation for unity and legitimacy in the nascent nation. Historian Joseph J. Ellis, in his biography of Washington, referred to him as the pillar of the American Revolution. This great man was George Washington. The year 1776 was an extremely difficult one for the Continental Army. Under the command of General William Howe, British forces captured New York and defeated the American troops in the battles of Long Island and Fort Washington, capturing thousands of soldiers. By mid-December, Washington had only about 5,000 soldiers left, morale was low, supplies were scarce, and the harsh winter weather worsened the situation. The British and their Hessian mercenaries had taken control of most of New Jersey and settled into winter quarters. Realizing that without action the Continental Army might collapse entirely, Washington decided to launch a bold surprise attack. Taking advantage of the Christmas holiday and severe weather, Washington led his troops in a raid on the Hessian garrison at Trenton, followed by an advance on Princeton. Both battles ended in victory, with over 1,100 enemy soldiers captured and large quantities of weapons and supplies seized, while American casualties were remarkably light, with no recorded deaths at Trenton. These successes shattered the myth of British invincibility, greatly boosted morale, solidified Washington's leadership, and demonstrated the potential of the Continental Army as a national fighting force. After the war, some within the Army suggested that he use military force and his prestige to establish a military regime or even crown himself king. However, Washington firmly refused, insisting on adhering to Republican principles. He handed over his military authority to the Continental Congress, an act that astonished Europe and demonstrated that he was no Cromwell-like dictator, but a citizen leader. Furthermore, he personally presided over the Constitutional Convention of 1787, using his influence to ensure the proceedings ran smoothly and greatly enhancing the credibility of the Constitution. As the first president of the United States, Washington understood that every action he took would set a precedent for the future, so he acted with extreme caution. He established the first cabinet and set the tradition of presidential consultation with its members. When the Whiskey Rebellion broke out among frontier farmers protesting taxation, he personally led troops to suppress it, making it clear that federal law must be obeyed and demonstrating the resolve and capability of the young federal government to uphold its authority. Amid wars among European powers, Britain and France, he resisted domestic pressure and insisted on American neutrality, securing valuable time for the nation's peaceful development and establishing a long-standing diplomatic tradition for the United States. After 2 terms in office, he firmly declined to seek a third term, delivered his famous farewell address, and returned to private life. Through his actions, he strengthened the Republican system, preventing the presidency from becoming a lifelong or hereditary position, a tradition followed for 150 years until it was codified in the 22nd Amendment. Washington's greatness lies in his unparalleled character, self-restraint, and far-sighted vision. The second great man led the United States through its most severe crisis, the Civil War. This conflict arose from clashes between the slave-based economy of the South and the free labor industrial system of the North, disputes over states' rights versus federal authority, and the issue of slavery's expansion. 11 Southern states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America, threatening permanent disunion. Under his leadership, the North ultimately prevailed, preserving the Union. On January 1st, 1863, his Emancipation Proclamation took effect, declaring that all slaves in rebellious states shall be thenceforward, and forever free. This shifted the war's objective from merely preserving the Union to abolishing slavery, transforming its moral significance and making it not only a turning point in American history, but also a model for global human rights movements. Historian Eric Foner, in The Fiery Trial, noted that his abolitionist policies redefined American democratic ideals. This great man was President Abraham Lincoln. As the 16th president and the first Republican leader, Lincoln guided the Northern Union through 4 years of civil war, 1861 to 1865, ultimately preserving the nation, emancipating slaves, and laying the groundwork for modern America. A key turning point in the Civil War was the Battle of Gettysburg, July 1st to 3rd, 1863. The battle began as an unexpected encounter between Northern and Southern forces in Pennsylvania. On the first day, the South gained the upper hand, forcing Northern troops to fall back to Cemetery Ridge. On the second day, fierce fighting occurred at Little Round Top, the Peach Orchard, and other locations, with Northern forces holding their ground. On the third day, General Robert E. Lee launched Pickett's Charge in an attempt to break the Union lines, but suffered a devastating defeat, leading to the retreat of Southern forces. The battle resulted in approximately 51,000 casualties, ended the South's Northern offensive, and, coupled with the fall of Vicksburg, laid the foundation for Northern victory. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, delivered at the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery, further endowed the battle with spiritual symbolism of freedom and unity, making it an eternal emblem of American solidarity. The speech reads, "47 years ago our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. That it is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. At every moment when power was within reach, they chose to limit personal authority and defend the Republican system. They held great power, but always kept the future of the Republic in mind. They not only helped create the United States, but also, through their actions, instilled in the nation the precious genes of peaceful power transition, constitutional supremacy, and enduring democracy. Throughout history, how many people have truly been able to resist the temptation of money and power as they did? This, ultimately, is the proof of their greatness.